Namaskar, good evening. You are watching Rajya Sabha television. I'm Smriti Rastogi with News Tonight. Let's begin the bulletin with the top headlines. Union Cabinet approves new procurement policy. Annadata Mulya Sanrakshan Yojana allows states to rope in private players. Choose from multiple schemes to protect farmers when crop prices fall below minimum support price or MSP. Cabinet also approves hike in ethanol price by 25%. Retail inflation drops to 11-month low of 3.69% in August compared to 4.17% in July on the back of falling food prices, including fruits and vegetables. Factory output grows at a healthy 6.6% in July. Air Chief Marshal says India facing grave threat from adversaries, endorses decision to procure Rafale jet fighters, asserts that together with Russian S-400 air defense missile system, they will plug gap in IAF's combat capabilities. Clean India initiative Swachhitahi Seva starts from September 15th. Prime Minister Narendra Modi appeals to all to be part of the movement and pay tribute to Mahatma Gandhi, whose 150th birth anniversary India celebrates on 2nd of October this year. And Supreme Court asks states, high courts to provide list of MPs and MLAs facing criminal cases. Seeks information by October 12th on whether cases have been transferred to a special court as directed by it. In a relief to farmers, the government on Wednesday gave its approval to the new procurement policy for crops. The decision was taken in the cabinet meeting headed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Several other decisions were taken in the meeting.
The centre on Wednesday announced a new scheme to ensure that farmers growing pulses and oilseeds benefit from higher minimum support prices announced by the government recently. Named Pradhan Mantri Annadata Aay Sanrakshan Abhiyan, the new scheme will be a mix of sub-schemes that will involve direct procurement from farmers under Price Support Scheme or PSS, paying them for losses incurred when wholesale market prices are lower than announced MSPs under Price Deficiency Payment Scheme or PDPS, and procurement by private traders at MSP. The centre has provided 16,550 crore rupees as bank guarantee for its agencies to directly procure from farmers under PSS.
वास्तव में किसानों की आय की संरक्षा में भारत सरकार द्वारा ये ऐतिहासिक कदम उठाया गया है तथा आशा की जाती है कि इस कदम से लंबे समय तक किसानों का कल्याण होता रहेगा। इस स्कीम में किसानों के लिए लाभकारी मूल्य सुनिश्चित करने तथा तंत्र विकसित सहित मूल्य समर्थन योजना, भावांतर योजना और पायलट निजी खरीद एवं स्टॉकिस्ट योजना शामिल है।
The cabinet also approved raising prices at which oil marketing companies will buy ethanol from sugar mills at 59.13 rupees per litre, up from 47.13 rupees per litre. It also approved an over 25% hike in the price of ethanol produced directly from sugarcane for blending in petrol.
गन्ना किसानों को राहत मिले, इसीलिए शुगर इंडस्ट्री स्टेबलाइज हो। सिर्फ शुगर नहीं, देश की इंपोर्ट डिपेंडेंसी भी घटे, एथेनॉल प्रोडक्शन बढ़े। इसके कारण हमारी देश की शुगर केन इंडस्ट्री में एक नई उछाल आएगी। देश की ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री में किसानों की उपज लिंक होगा।
The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approved electrification of remaining unelectrified broad gauge routes of Indian Railways. Under this, 13,000 km of unelectrified routes will be electrified at a cost of 12,000 crore rupees. Panchanan Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
According to the data released by Central Statistics Office, industrial production grew at 6.6% in July on the back of good performance by the manufacturing sector and higher offtake of capital goods and consumer durables. Factory output measured in terms of the index of industrial production had expanded by just 1% in July last year. The IIP growth for June was also revised downwards to 6.8% from the provisional estimate of 7% released last month. The manufacturing sector recorded a 7% growth in July as against a contraction of 0.1% in the same month a year ago. The consumer durable sector recorded an impressive growth of 14.4% in July against a dip of 2.4% a year ago. In terms of industries, 22 out of 23 industry groups in the manufacturing sector showed positive growth during July 2018. Meanwhile, the retail inflation cooled to a 10-month low of 3.69% in August, mainly due to a fall in the prices of kitchen items, including fruits and vegetables. The inflation based on consumer price index stood at 4.17% in July and 3.28% in August 2017. CPI inflation was 3.58% in October 2017 and has remained above RBI's targeted rate of 4% since then. The RBI will be factoring in inflation data while deciding the interest rate at its next bi-monthly monetary policy. And for more on this, we'll go across to Mr. Shubhamoy Bhattacharya, consulting editor with the Business Standard. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to Rajya Sabha Television. So what explains the fall in the retail inflation to a 10-month low?
Well, you know, one of the important things to remember is that last year, at the same time, a fundamental change had happened in the Indian economy, which is that the GST had kicked in. Now, once the GST had kicked in, what it had done is it had smoothened out the production in lots of sectors. And the result, this was actually one of the major effects that GST was supposed to have. And since July, we have had about a year of GST's movement, which has clearly established a period of low prices, essentially moderating that runaway pace of inflation we have earlier. So that is the benefit that we are getting. Remember, there wasn't a very heavy, we can't say that inflation last year, this time was very low, so very high, so therefore we are earning the effect of a low base. No, it's not, I mean, the effect of that base. It is essentially an improvement. And that is what is showing up in the inflation sector, in the inflation data going ahead.
And how do the industrial production figures indicate?
Well, that's interesting because the core inflation, which basically manufactures the pricing power of the manufacturing sector, is also been down for 2 consecutive months, which shows that surprisingly, in a period when the rupee was actually is gyrating all over the place, we would have expected that inflation to have started adding on to the price pressures. But it's not. The manufacturing sector's inflationary pressure is far less than one would have anticipated. Now, that's a very positive phenomena for the Indian economy because it shows that there is enough, what you might call cushion in the economy to allow it to go in for growth without pushing inflation up suddenly.
And how are the reduced inflation figures expected to reflect in the RBI Monetary Policy Committee review?
Yeah, that is interesting because if we just look at the rupee, then obviously one would expect that the RBI would start looking at reasons to hike interest. Because a higher interest rate essentially would mean that the rupee becomes more attractive and it would draw in more dollars. But with inflation being low, and remember RBI is an inflation controller. I mean, its basic role that it has set up is that it will keep inflation tamped down, which means that there is less what I might call a reason for RBI to push up inflation unless within the data they discern chances of inflation coming back. As of now, even with the oil prices being high, the interesting thing to remember is that transport and communication, both of these sectors have actually shown a reduced inflation. So the high price of oil is not pushing towards a higher inflation. It's actually a very interesting sweet spot for the Indian economy.
And what is the outlook for the industry front?
With this sort of a pricing, one should expect that the inflation and the industry, because industry also, if you look at the figures for IIP that has come out today, shows that it has grown 6.3 on the back of sequentially 6.6% last month. So it shows that the industrial recovery is becoming more broad-based. Of course, there are pockets of weakness. Capital sector, for instance, capital equipment is again in single digit. So there are weaknesses, but it is generally spreading to more sectors of the economy. So I would say that the industrial rebound is definitely happening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shubhmoy Bhattacharya, for joining us and helping us understand this latest development in a very better way. Moving on to some other developments, Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa on Wednesday said that India is facing a grave threat from its adversaries, and government's decision to procure French Rafale fighter jets and Russia S-400 air defense missile system will help fill the gap in IAF's combat capabilities.
Indian Air Force Chief Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa on Wednesday strongly defended the government's decision to procure only 36 Rafale fighter jets against the original proposal of 126 aircraft, saying there have been similar emergency acquisitions in the past. He said that no country is facing the kind of grave threat that India is.
आपको मैंने क्या बताया, हिस्टोरिकली कितने स्कॉन्ड खरीदे हैं सरकार ने जब भी इमरजेंसी परचेज करी. अब हिस्ट्री तो पढ़ते नहीं, हिस्ट्री पढ़ो ना. हर बार तो हमने 2 स्कॉन्ड खरीदे हैं इमरजेंसी.
Addressing a seminar in New Delhi, Dhanoa said the intentions of India's adversaries can change overnight. He said that China is significantly modernizing its air force and that the Indian Air Force is reeling under a severe shortage of fighter aircraft at a time that the country faces security challenges from 2 nuclear-powered neighbors.
Since our neighbors have replaced their second and third generation aircraft, modern aircraft, we also have to upgrade equally. Secondly, we need numbers to carry out full spectrum operations. We have to match the force level of our adversaries so that we can fight simultaneously on 2 fronts. These force levels will give us a conventional deterrence against our neighbors.
The Air Force Chief said by providing the Rafale jets and the S-400 missile defense system, the government is strengthening the Indian Air Force to counter any shortfalls. The Air Chief Marshal said the force currently has 31 squadrons of fighter jets against the sanctioned strength of 42 squadrons. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Veteran BJP leader L.K. Advani has been renominated as the chairman of the Lok Sabha Ethics Committee by Speaker Sumitra Mahajan. The committee examines complaints related to unethical conduct by members of the parliament. According to a Lok Sabha bulletin, it is also free to take up suo motu investigation into the matters relating to ethics and unethical conduct by the member, wherever necessary, and make such recommendations as it may deem fit. P. Karunakaran has also been renominated as the chairman of the committee on absence of members from the sittings of the House, while Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank will head the committee on government assurances. Chandrakant B. Khere was renominated as chairman of the committee on papers laid on the table, and Dilip Kumar Mansukhlal Gandhi as the chairman of the committee on subordinate legislation. The Election Commission is looking at the possibility of holding assembly elections in Madhya Pradesh, Mizoram, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Telangana together. The poll process in the 5 states could be completed by the 2nd week of December. A senior poll functionary told PTI that going by the past poll schedules, Chhattisgarh could have polls in 2 phases, while in the remaining states, the exercise could be completed in a single phase. Stepping up preparations for conducting assembly elections in Telangana, the Commission had announced on Saturday that the final voter list will be published on 8th of October. After the new roll is published, the Commission will be legally ready to announce the poll schedule. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called on the people to be part of Swachhitahi Seva movement from 15th of September to 2nd of October. The 15-day program is part of the ongoing Swachhta Bharat mission. In a series of tweets and video messages, the Prime Minister said it is a great way to pay tribute to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Celebrations of 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi will begin on 2nd of October. It is also the day when Swachh Bharat mission completes 4 years. The Prime Minister said at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday, he looks forward to mark the commencement of Swachhitahi Seva movement and interacting with those who have worked hard on the ground to strengthen the mission aimed at fulfilling Mahatma Gandhi's dream of clean India.
ये हमारे नागरिकों के आशीष, आप सबके आशीर्वाद, आप सबके सक्रिय भागीदारी का ही परिणाम है कि बीते 4 वर्षों में देश में 8.5 करोड़, आंकड़ा छोटा नहीं है, 8.5 करोड़ शौचालय बनकर के तैयार हो गए। आज 90% भारतीयों को शौचालय की सुविधा उपलब्ध है। 2014 के पहले सिर्फ 40% भारतीयों के पास ही टॉयलेट था। देश के करोड़ों करोड़ समर्पित स्वच्छाग्रहियों का ही यह पुण्य प्रताप है कि आज भारत के 4.25 लाख से भी अधिक गांव, 430 जिले, 2800 नगर, शहर और कस्बे और 19 राज्य एवं केंद्र शासित प्रदेश खुले में शौच से मुक्त ओपन डेफिकेशन फ्री ODF घोषित हो चुके हैं। मैं सभी देशवासियों को आह्वान करता हूं, स्कूलों के बच्चे, कॉलेजों के युवा, NSS, NCC, नेहरू युवा केंद्र, ये हमारे सभी युवा, माताएं, बहनें, हाउसिंग सोसाइटियां, स्वयंसेवी संस्थाएं, सरकारी कर्मचारी, देश की जानी मानी सभी हस्तियां, मीडिया ग्रुप्स, हर कोई अभी से योजना बनाए। कहां सफाई करेंगे, उसके लिए औरों को कैसे जोड़ेंगे, मोटिवेट कैसे करेंगे।
And with that, time for a very short break. More news and updates on the other side. Stay with us.
Watch The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira, at 9:30 p.m.
But first up, One Nation, One Card policy.
If they are brought into the digital mode, one, public transport will not make losses. Secondly, it will be much easier for the consumers to pay, and for the corporations also it is very good because they get their cash and everything on an on-time basis. So the chances of pilferage is less.
Every system in India gets saturated and it weans away people from using them. So first we have to create a system where people are able to get convenient system, then they will adopt these digital cards.
We'll take a closer look on the new drone policy.
The policy looks good. I have no problem with its being adopted, but I see huge gaps in its implementation and monitoring.
You have to make sure that the dangers are avoided and we put it in the right direction so that we use it in a very effective manner in case of disasters and emergency.
Enter the majestic forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan and you'll come across the Jaipur column. A gift to the Viceroy from Savai Madho Singh, the Maharaja of Jaipur, to commemorate the creation of the new capital. The 145-meter high column is crowned with 6 pointed crystal stars on a bronze lotus, and inside the stone shaft runs a steel tube which weighs a little more than 5 tons. The base of the column has text conceived by Lord Irwin and Sir Edwin Lutyens inscribed on it.
Welcome back. The Supreme Court on Wednesday directed the chief secretaries of all states, including registrar generals of the high courts, to furnish details of the criminal cases pending against MPs and MLAs. The Apex Court also asked whether the cases have been transferred to the special courts set up in pursuance of its December 2017 order to try them. A three-judge bench of the court sought information whether special courts set up in pursuance of its order were functional. It also sought to know whether, in view of the volume of cases pending, there was need of additional special courts to try lawmakers facing criminal cases. The court order came after the Union Ministry of Law and Justice filed an affidavit on 11th of September, which said a total of 1,233 criminal cases were transferred to the special courts. Of these, 136 have been disposed of and remaining 1,097 were pending. The Supreme Court on Wednesday extended the house arrest till September 17th of the 5 prominent activists arrested by the Pune police in raids in 5 cities on 28th of August. They were arrested for allegedly conspiring the violence and links with Naxals.
The Supreme Court has extended the house arrest of 5 rights activists who were arrested from several cities in connection with the Bhima-Koregaon violence case for another 5 days till 17th September. A bench of Chief Justice Deepak Mishra and Justices A.M. Khanwilkar and D.Y. Chandrachud adjourned the hearing on the plea filed by historian Romila Thapar and 4 others to September 17th after it was submitted that senior advocate Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who is representing the petitioners, was busy in another court.
So Gadling was threatened during Sai Baba's trial that he would be the next target of police. In execution of that threat, they have taken this action in malafide manner. It was also pointed out to the court that state has consistently taken a stand that all the riots that took place in Maharashtra were masterminded by none other than Milind Ekbote. There are multiple evidences to this extent, and despite that, now police is coming up with a concocted story that it were these intellectuals who conspired to do this program to instigate that riot. So this is a far-fetched reasoning by the police officers which has no substance in it.
The court was hearing the plea filed against the arrest of the activists Varavara Rao, Arun Ferreira, Vernon Gonzalez, Sudha Bharadwaj and Gautam Navlakha. On August 29, the Apex Court ordered the house arrest of the activists, saying dissent is the safety valve of democracy. The Maharashtra police had arrested the 5 activists on August 28th in connection with an FIR lodged following a conclave Elgar Parishad held on December 31st last year that had later triggered violence at the Koregaon Bhima village. Ravinder Singh Sharan's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
International news now. The death toll in a suicide attack near a gathering of protesters in eastern Afghanistan has soared to 68. The spokesman of the governor of Nangarhar said over 165 persons have also been injured in the bomb attack on protesters. According to the officials, a suicide bomber approached the crowded tent where the protesters had gathered and detonated his explosive vest. The demonstrators had gathered in protest over the appointment of a local police chief. However, there has been no immediate claim of responsibility, and the Taliban has also denied any role in the attacks. In the US, up to 1.7 million people in North Carolina, South Carolina and Virginia have been made mandatory evacuation orders ahead of the arrival of Hurricane Florence. Forecasters are predicting that Florence will make landfall in the Carolinas tomorrow or early Friday. The National Hurricane Center said that Florence is expected to be an extremely dangerous major hurricane when it makes landfall, bringing life-threatening storm surge to coastal areas. President Donald Trump has urged people to heed orders to evacuate.
The safety of American people is my absolute highest priority. We are sparing no expense. We are totally prepared. We're ready. We're as ready as anybody's ever been. And it looks to me and it looks to a lot of very talented people that do this for a living like this is going to be a storm that's going to be a very large one, far larger than we've seen in perhaps decades.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday said that North Korea must be given security guarantees in exchange for steps towards denuclearization. Putin, speaking at an economic forum, said it was counterproductive if one side did a lot and the other did nothing, and said that Pyongyang was waiting for a response to the positive steps it had taken. Putin also said it was important that North Korea receive international guarantees on its own security. Former India hockey captain Sardar Singh on Wednesday announced his retirement from the international hockey after an illustrious career spanning 12 years. Sardar said he made the decision after a disappointing Asian Games where India failed to defend its title and returned with a bronze medal. He further added that it's time for future generation to take over. The 32-year-old made over 350 international appearances for India and captained the national team for 8 long years from 2008 to 2016 before handling the responsibility to PR Srijesh. Sardar was also the youngest player to captain the Indian team when he led the side at the 2008 Sultan Azlan Shah Cup. He received the Arjuna Award in 2012 and Padma Shri in 2015. Sardar has represented India in 2 Olympics. And that's all we have for you in this edition of News Tonight. For more news and updates, keep watching Rajya Sabha television.